Hello and welcome back to Clownfish TV. It is me, Geeky Sparkles, and today I am alone doing this video. So you're gonna get Kneon and me in different videos than together. Sorry about that, just today is hectic. So today we're gonna talk about Gina Carano. If you remember, she had filed a lawsuit against Disney for her wrongful termination over what happened when she got fired from The Mandalorian. And then Disney tried to say that, oh, their First Amendment rights were violated. They had to do it because, First Amendment, freedom of speech, and all this other crap. And now they're trying to get it dismissed. So Gina Carano's attorneys have finally filed their response to that. I guess the hearing for it's going to be June 12th to see if they're going to dismiss it or what's going to happen. But they have filed their response, and we're going to talk about that today. A lot of what they're saying is things that people like me or other people that are on YouTube have been saying for a while now. So I got this from Deadline. They have the actual court filing, which we can talk about here in a bit. I'm going to break it down on here on piratesandprincesses.net. So piratesandprincesses.net, for those you don't know, is my Disney blog. So they're talking about how she got fired from Star Wars in 2021. Now, for those who don't know, the first issue she faced was the fact that people on Twitter, at the time it was Twitter, were demanding that she put pronouns in her bio. She politely refused to do so, said that she's against bullying, but she, doesn't want to do it herself, but she respects their right and stands with them if they want to put their pronouns up on theirs because she's against bullying harassment. To which they turned around and harassed her for weeks. Here are some of the posts that came from Data Racer 117 on Twitter before. They went after her for weeks and weeks and weeks over it. And I want to point out, which they point out in the lawsuit as well, or the rebuttal as well, and things I've mentioned since this happened, was that Lucasfilm and Disney, a lot of the accounts, people who work there, did not have pronouns in their bio as well. And then they point out in the lawsuit, a lot of the accounts associated with the harassment she faced did not have pronouns in their bios either. So they bring that up and they talk about, Pedro Pascal and Mark Hamill and how there seems to be a double standard when it comes to how Disney's handling this and how one is supposed to be problematic for Disney, but the other isn't. So before we get into it any further, please like and subscribe. If you do, I'll give you a woohoo. And we're going to take a look at the filing. So they filed this ahead of the June 12th. They're going to go get up again for a judge to look at it, and they're going to see what they're going to move forward with it. So here's what they said. They said, after admitting that they discriminated against Carano for her personal political beliefs, they being Disney, and subjected her to disparate treatment from her similarly situated male co-stars, which they later mentioned as Mark Hamill and Pedro Pascal, the Walt Disney Company, Lucasfilm Ltd., and Huckleberry Industries, collectively defendants, assert that the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution gives them absolute immunity. Defendants are incorrect. Neither the First Amendment itself nor the few cases implying the First Amendment in the context of casting gives employers the right to control or punish the personal speech of employees. None of Carano's comments referenced defendants, Star Wars, or The Mandalorian, or had anything to do with defendants. Carano's claims do not seek to impose any message on defendants or to change defendants' speech in any fashion. Rather, Carano seeks relief for defendants' violation of laws of general applicability that do not, as applied here, inhibit or affect defendants' speech. Basically, they're saying about what she said impacted them, and they bring up throughout this that how did it impact you? Show us how. They don't specifically say, here's how it affected the show directly, or they don't say that. In fact, right before, they got rid of her, they were saying about how everybody liked her so much. And they did like her until they liked her too much. And that's the problem. Because what happened is because Gina Carano's character of Cara Dune, they had her hair braided on the one side, so like kind of half shaved, even though it was braided. And they were making her a strong female character. But I argued from the beginning it was strong female character done right, because you understood where, she came from. She didn't just get it handed to her. She had to earn it. And I just thought she was a great character. And a lot of people liked her. However, Twitter, being the people they are over there, especially the ones that are extremists and mentally ill most of the time, decided that was their representation because they decided. And because the character, which is never explicitly listed as anything other than just that it's Cara Dune, they decided that character was their representation. That meant the actress had to be their representation too. And even if she didn't identify in the ways they did, that she needed to be their advocate like Pascal was, Pedro Pascal was. And because they decided that, they started to brigade against her if she had opinions that differed from them, because she tends to lean more right on her opinions, where Pedro Pascal, Disney, and Mark Hamill tend to lean more left. Mark Hamill, far, far, far left anymore. I mean, he's flipping appearing with Biden, for pity's sakes, to try to, increase his chances. I don't know how that's going to help. At least he wasn't sniffing Mark's hair. They definitely have political biases at Disney, and they definitely, each of these different sides have a different leaning. And it's very interesting that people who lean one direction get fired, and then the people who lean the other direction have gone out and said things that are equally, or I would argue even more so, politically motivated or directly politically motivated, don't get any punishment whatsoever. So that's what they're talking about here. I have the clips in here. It's easier to do it this way. Then they bring up how the filing brings up that Disney mischaracterized Carano, because they are basically saying they've got rid of her because of her abhorrent statements about the Holocaust. What she said was not, didn't list any political parties whatsoever. It was just about the fact that people are fighting each other and they're hating each other over things like, their tweets or their political affiliations or whatever. And that what happened in the Holocaust was that neighbors were turning on each other, reporting each other. They got people to hate each other first. It didn't just happen overnight, which is true. And that's also something that's similarly posted at the Auschwitz Museum. Disney itself, as I point out in another video, they own National Geographic. National Geographic did a piece on the Nazi Germany issue, mentioned something very similar in their article, which was put out this year. So it's okay when they say it. But here's what they said. As to the specifics of Carano's complaint, and contrary to defendants' assertion that Carano did not disparage anyone, and she certainly did not publicly trivialize the Holocaust, let alone grotesquely do so. Indeed, the Auschwitz Museum made the same point as the one contained in Carano's February 10th, 2021 post. Defendants claim Carano's February 10th, 2021 post was comparing criticism of political conservative viewpoints to the Holocaust and Nazi Germany. But the post, which they quote, does not refer to the conservative viewpoints at all. And it does not. It's just saying people are turning against each other in general. It isn't saying that, Democrats against Republicans. It doesn't say that. It could be interpreted as Republicans against Democrats. It wasn't even about that. It was just, people can't be rounded up and killed in mass unless people let it happen. And how they let it happen is they turn you against each other first, which is correct. That's what happened historically. I'm sorry, but that's pretty much what happened. But then again, I want to mention, that being said, we had Pedro Pascal posting this. Losers in 1865, the Confederate flag. Losers in 1945, the Nazi flag. Losers in 2020, and it had a MAGA hat. Now tell me, this I would argue more so is leveraging the Holocaust and World War II for political points. You're flat out saying losers are the MAGA hat and comparing it to the Nazi flag and the Confederate flag. That much more so. And this was made while he was working on The Mandalorian and all that. In 2018, he made another post where he put pictures of children, or people in cages in Nazi Germany and compared it to, the cages they were putting kids in at the border and stuff. But that was technically before, the Disney show came out. So I'm not using that one as an example here, but this is an example. He's saying things all the time. Mark Hamill was totally out there talking crap all the time, making fun of people. And that's what they're bringing up in this response. They also said that, here, I'm going to continue back where we were at. The part about the pronouns on Twitter. Likewise, Carano did not mock people who identify their pronouns or to show support for transgender rights. And of note, several of the accounts that hounded Carano for not putting pronouns in her headliner or header did not have pronouns in their own. Yet, as set out in the complaint, defendants harassed Carano over pronoun issues, enforcing their own view of orthodox speech outside the workplace. And they bring this up a lot. That while they're trying to argue First Amendment, I guess according to at least in California, I'm sure other places, employers can't control you in that way. They can't tell you what you can and can't do out of work. Now, I will say when it comes to social media, it's trickier because a lot of places have social media guidelines in place. I think it's interesting because I remember when Peter Cimetti wanted to put guidelines up for social media. Basically, you're not supposed to disparage people because you could be disparaging customers. And the people who are mad and think that it's completely okay that Disney does this to Gina Carano were ticked off when there was possible, things from a company telling them what they could and couldn't say, because that wasn't right. It wasn't the company's place to tell them that they could or couldn't say what they thought. But when Gina Carano got fired for the same thing, they thought it was okay and fine and great. There's this big double standard. Basically, it's if you agree with me, you can say what you want and you can learn the chuds. But if you are on the other side, you're not allowed to say anything because how dare you? And that's a problem. I mean, if you're going to argue this, you need to argue it evenly. It needs to be enforced evenly. If you're going to put social guidelines and you're going to gag some people from speaking, you need to do it across the board. This whole picking and choosing. And then she can even turn it and saying, well, and they do kind of allude to it. They're men. They were allowed to say what they want. I was a woman. And she can leverage that. And I would. That's just fighting fire with fire and beating them at their own damn game is what that is. So we talked about these already. They mentioned Mark Hamill and Pedro Pascal. They said, with no evidence that defendants would be forced to have their creative speech diluted by views thinking about Carano's speech, the First Amendment proves no sanctuary to defendants, at least under the facts alleged in the complaint. As explained there, defendants certainly were not concerned about views associating Pascal's or Hamill's speech with the defendant's creative speech, and defendants' attempt in their motion to distinguish Pascal and Hamill's comments from Carano's does not help them there. Here, rather, it simply shows the duplicity of the defendant's actions and confirms their violation of California law. They're saying that she misused the Holocaust for personal political gain and she was abhorrent views. And again, let me point out Pedro Pascal's post. I went the wrong way. Losers, Confederate losers, the Nazis tied to the Holocaust, and losers in 2020, Trump supporters. This one, I would argue, is more so politically motivated and denigrating to the, Holocaust. And his post about, people in cages from Nazi Germany are far worse than what she posted. But yet they had no problem with this. But she makes a comment that was, basically what they already said at the Holocaust Museum. And that's terrible. They makes a comment that they basically reiterate in their own National Geographic articles later, like this year. And that's okay. But when she said it, it was abhorrent. And it was, terrible. How dare she? It's a double standard. That is how it comes across. So I guess it's going to be heard on June 12th in front of Judge Sherilyn Peace Garnett. And then they're going to decide what they're going to do, if they're going to dismiss it or move forward. You can go out, if you got to Pirates and Princesses, I linked the legal filing. Deadline also has it, and it goes on and on. It talks about the examples they gave and why those are not supportive of their claim. It's a very interesting thing because they're not, an employer is not allowed to say their First Amendment rights trump their employees' First Amendment rights. Like if you're gonna argue First Amendment rights as a reason why you can fire somebody, then you can't put what they do after work as, that's violating their freedom of speech as well. And the thing is, they're going to argue, well, it hurt our show. And their argument throughout it is you did not give an example of how it hurt your show. Where did it hurt your show? Because the people on Twitter were mad about it. That's why it hurt your show. Because most people are like, wait, what did she do? They didn't even know about it. And they're not even mentioning like her comments about vaccine mandates or anything like that. It's all about the Holocaust comment and the stupid pronouns. And again, as when I first saw it, I commented, I've talked about it many times, that the people at Lucasfilm, the ones that were calling her out, I think were probably behind this and would come out in Discovery. The people that were, harassing her and demanding she go to this room where she had to sit with like 40 or whatever Lucasfilm employees that are LGBTQ+. You tell me that they weren't behind a lot of it, right? They were allowed to not have pronouns in their bio. They were allowed to say what they wanted. A lot of Lucasfilm and Disney employees did not have pronouns in their bio, nor were they required to do so. But when she got harassed for months, they said nothing and then used it as a reason to leverage to try to get her fired. But Pedro Pascal and Mark Hamill say things that align with their political beliefs, and they don't get punished at all. They take it down. They were told to take it down, and they took it down. Now, if she were told to take it down and she didn't do it and they didn't give that option first, then they can say that's apples to apples. But in this case, it seems like apples to oranges. So anyway, this is what's going on. You can find out more and read it for yourself out there. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to claim to be. This is how it seems to a normie reading this. So please comment and let us know what you think. Please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.